Okay, so me and Panos, we are going to talk a bit about how to deploy Eiffel in a public cloud. That's one way to put the topic at least. And I will start discussing a bit on why we would want that and what such a solution could look like. Yeah, and I will base this on something that is called Nordix. Nordix is an open source foundation, as its homepage states. It's used to collaborate in the Nordic region. It enables organizations to contribute to open source projects, as you can see there. It's somehow managed by money from Ericsson mostly, but there are other organizations involved at least as well. I don't have the full picture of who is involved, but it is like an open organization working with open source. It provides infrastructure and some services on top of that infrastructure. For example, Kubernetes clusters. The difference from many other cloud providers is that you will, through this system, also be able to have access to the structure yourself. So there is some kind of access layer there, which allows a bit more access than most other cloud providers might do. And we're also, if we are part of this, we will also be able to provide updates and improvements to the services that are provided on this infrastructure in this in the Nordix system. Yeah, that's what it says there. There are some services available today. So these are internet open addresses. So there is a Gerrit instance on this infrastructure that is available for use. There is a Jenkins instance. There is an Artifactory to store binaries in. And there is also an image registry, which can be used. And then there is the public cloud, where we can get access to a cluster ourselves and deploy things. And that's what we will soon look into a bit more, how we will do that. So
we are using, or Access is using the Arbor, the image registry there for storing. Is it Easy2Use images or?
Sorry, is
it the ETOS images?
Yeah, it is images.
Could go over. And probably not GraphQL, but it doesn't go over.
Okay, so we already have some Eiffel projects storing images here. Yeah, that's good. Good point. So then some years ago, when we looked into this first time, and then it has been dormant for quite a long time, we more or less made up these different phases on how we could get started with these Nordix deployments. Actually, the phase 0 I added recently, because that's more or less what we have done now with this POC that Panos will talk about, or the demo. But it's somewhat to get to know about the Nordix, how to get access to it, how it more or less feels to work with that environment, what limitations you have and what you can do. And then it will be about setting up some basic, how should we really work with it? Should we use the Gerrit repository there for some purposes for ourselves, or is it just the image registry we should use? Should we use the Jenkins instance that is already there, or should we have our own Jenkins instance, which has some Eiffel plugin to it, deployed by ourselves from the community? So such things we need to sort out what we want to have there. And then we will connect our GitHub repositories to these, to publish images that you have already done them for ETOS to some extent. So through GitHub Actions, we should be able to do such things, and then also run Eiffel, the Eiffel system on the infrastructure in Nordix based on what is pushed then to those registries. We could do tests on the pull requests themselves, or we can do tests on the merged pull requests. And then, of course, we should use Eiffel all over there. So we should send events in the Nordix infrastructure to see how well where are we in the CI pipeline for Eiffel itself for the different components, and we can use that as a showcase area where we can show others how Eiffel can be used in the live system, so to say, or Eiffel itself in this case. So some different phases to come the whole way there. Use Eiffel for Eiffel will be the Nirvana stage here then, where we use Eiffel for everything and we can visualize what happens through Eiffel events. And then of course maybe phase 4B or phase 5 then would be to even make sure that those events are possible to federate out of the Nordix infrastructure to your own maybe organization. To Ericsson, for example, we can see how can we trigger updates of our internal Eiffel services based on the images that are published on Nordix through these events. Yeah. So demo. It was a question mark here some days ago, but now I think it's an exclamation mark. I hope so. Panos will take over there and give us demo.
I have to sit because I will run some commands. So just share my screen, right? Yeah. So yeah, I will present about Nordix, and it's more practical presentation, so not so much theory. Emil explained how we can use and maybe the future of how we can use the Nordix. I have said who am I before. I didn't know that we will introduce ourselves like that, but I have prepared one slide. Yeah, I think I said everything. Didn't say that I'm from Greece, that's all. Yeah, the agenda is the Eiffel deployment at Nordix. I will just show how we can deploy the Eiffel in a Kubernetes cluster, and what is Eiffel Easy2Use tool, and which is the so we can find it in the open source community. Yeah, I will do the demo and some guideline instructions, or let's say tips. And yeah, and after we can have a discussion if you have any ideas how we can proceed further, or yeah, whatever. So what is Eiffel Easy2Use? It's just one tool that we can install any set of components in Docker containers or in a Kubernetes cluster via Helm charts. And we expect that the users do not put any effort, just to run one command and to have one, let's say, playground to experiment. Today we'll focus only on Kubernetes, on cluster. I will not say anything about Docker, but there is this option as well if someone doesn't have access to cluster on his laptop, let's say. But that's why we have Nordix, not everyone to have access to cluster. And yeah, I have the link also for the Easy2Use repo. You can find it, of course, in the community. Yeah, so there are many services there. They are coming, also they are open source. I don't know everything about them. We will not go so deep there, but we have at least the most important, let's say, we have our RabbitMQ, we have MongoDB, ER, that we can store our Eiffel events. We have Jenkins, 2 solutions, one from internally Ericsson that somehow was open source, RemRem, and more. We have Vici as well. Yeah. Here is the cheat sheet. Yeah, you can focus only on the first box, or yeah, the second is for Minikube if someone doesn't have access to remote cluster. Simple commands is very easy. Yeah. And here will come the demo that I will run some commands. So I hope that, yeah, unfortunately I have to exit the full screen. Yeah. So what I will do here is the first thing, we have to connect to the remote cluster at Nordix. So we need to have SSH keys. I don't know how this one we can, yeah, how we can do it, how someone can have these keys and so on. It's maybe we can discuss it later. But I have contact Nordix and I have sent my public key and so on. So I have access. And also right now I have access with my 5G. I can't have access with open any Wi-Fi. And yeah, the first thing is just we have to clone the repo. I have done it already. And then, so it's here. It's Eiffel easy to use. We need to create a namespace. By default, it's called Eiffel. So I will create one here. Okay, we have created, and now it's we have to run the command. It's very easy. There is Easy2Use script inside the repo that we have defined our commands, and we have to start the Eiffel. The target is Kubernetes. The domain, I know it, is Eiffel for eiffel.nordix.org. Yeah, we have the bundles in the repo. We need to find the path. The namespace I said by default is Eiffel. So I will define it, but the command, if you don't define it, is Eiffel by default. And we have the service, it's called Eiffel. So running here, just take a few seconds. Hopefully that it will work. No any issues. Yeah, and when we run the command, now I will show you how we can, let's say, verify that everything works properly. So what can we do here? We didn't have an error. What can we do is just check the pods in the Eiffel, and we can see that everything is running completed. That's not so enough. Maybe we can check the logs of the most important, let's say, services like ER. So I can say Eiffel ER Eiffel is the namespace 0. Yeah, we didn't have any error. And check the RabbitMQ as well. This is the most important, I would say, services. Everything is okay. Sometimes RabbitMQ restarts. And then we have to check the ingress. Yeah, and everything is there. We have class ngx controller. We have address. So everything looks fine. So let's go, for example, to see an example. For example, can we, if we take this one, do we have access? I hope yes. So yes, we have access. We can log in. The usernames and passwords are in the repos. So we have login, and here's the Jenkins FEM, a solution from Ericsson, I think. Let's build that job that has Eiffel events. Yeah, it takes some seconds. You can see that is successful. You can see the output, and here we can see that we have sent Eiffel activity started event. This is the ID, the 33, and so on. Okay, we have some artifact created and activity finished. How we can check that these events exist? So we can go to ER. can go to the list events, and here we have some events. So if we copy this one, let's say, check, yeah, it's here. Eiffel activity started. Yeah, it's correct. Yeah, and in general, you can play. You can build also your, let's say, own, don't know, clients in scripts, whatever language you want. We have internally, Tobias has created one, let's say, Python script, and yeah, if I run it, just to show you that you can do it with a HTTP REST API. And also they have some Swaggers UIs that you can play, like where is, like, for example, yeah, this one. Yeah, that you can play, for example, here. It's not necessary to write scripts. So if you put here Eiffel semantics, that is our protocol. We have a list of the Eiffel events, for example. And yeah, I think that's enough with the demo. Doesn't take so much time, I think. I did a presentation, it took me 3-4 minutes. So if someone is familiar with Kubernetes, can do it in 1 minute, I think. Yeah. So what can we see in the future is obviously we have to fix some and update some details in the repo. There are some issues. There are not so many bugs, I would say, for easy-to-use tool, but some old versions that we need to update and so on. Yeah, would be highly appreciated if many users can use it and give us feedback, and can open an issue on GitHub, find anything. And of course, if someone can write code, would be appreciated. And here starts the discussion part. So if you have to add anything else about future, you can say. You have one more slide for discussion. Why should we care about Eiffel? Because my opinion is it's a good way to start experimenting as a newbie rookie Eiffel user. It's not bad for trying new ideas and makes Eiffel more attractive. So yeah, thanks for your attention. And if you have to add anything for the 2 last slides.
Is there any form of visualization included?
Yeah, we have a Vici, but as I said, we need to update the Java version. And we were discussing if we can still use Vici, because Vici takes us an input JSON file with Eiffel events. So it's not so live real time, but we have also the Eiffel store that we can replace it. And I think we had a discussion in the last meetings, but yeah, it's there in the easy to use.
Does Jenkins include the Apple Broadcaster plugin or the other Jenkins plugin?
I think we have Jenkins, and we have one solution from Ericsson internally.
So the Eiffel Fem plugin is there.
Yeah.
The Eiffel Jenkins plugin is there.
Okay.
That's as a binary or as a plugin, really, not a source code file. Yeah. And then there's a plain Jenkins without any Eiffel support as well. You said another Jenkins.
Yeah, we have Jenkins and Jenkins Pen.
Yeah. So this is pure Jenkins, which more or less you can call from. It includes Eiffel Intelligence, I believe, as well. You can call that Jenkins from an Eiffel Intelligence instance to just trigger things, trigger actions without sending events. Then I would accept it. So you mentioned briefly you use this Eiffel bundle in here. So there's the concept of bundles in Easy2Use. And there is actually another bundle which is a bit more complicated, which also contains a Gerrit instance itself. It contains a key cloak and it contains Artifactory, I believe. So you will have more or less a complete ecosystem, CI ecosystem deployed in the same way with just one command. I'm not sure you have ever used that, so there might be bugs in that deployment, but
Which button?
the CX bundle.
I think I have tried GitLab and it didn't work.
Okay, yeah. So it hasn't been maintained for years, so maybe there are issues in it, but it shouldn't be impossible at least to get it up running again if there's an interest for it. And then you can have a playground for a full-fledged CI system with everything included. And of course, there could be other bundles added or updated or however. It's a concept to set up a sandbox environment.
Yeah.
I guess this will not be the environment we set up. If we would use Eiffel for Eiffel in this setup, we should probably not deploy it with Easy2Use, or maybe not. We could maybe use GitOps instead in that scenario, so we have a more infrastructure as code controlled scenario. So maybe this is more of a sandbox way, and you could have your own namespace in the cluster to deploy multiple versions of the Easy2Use setup. The same cluster. Yeah.
Question on the similar thing. So I see that you have this Helm charts as a dark ones.
Yeah.
How these Helm are maintain these Helm charts or?
Yeah, we maintain them, but the Eiffel charts.
Yeah,
only.
But I don't find that anywhere. So that's.
I think you have to untar them. That's why the Helm chart. If you are talking about Helm charts, yeah, you have to untar the file.
Yeah. So, for example, like this Helm chart is.
Did you untar the Eiffel?
Yeah, I know.
Maybe I can show you later, but
But are we maintaining these Helm charts on some GitHub or is this for something?
no, in
I mean, we could get some, we don't have any part, we could have it on board. It just, I don't know why it's used for things like that, so it's just that we can publish them.
Yeah, because
But it's not up to date, maybe. Yeah.
maintaining a separate Helm repo
Yeah.
for GitOps and those kind of uses.
And I do not use these Nordix custom. Because it's used as it is.
You need to request access. So the way now, when you want to deploy it yourself, when you want to run the kubectl commands, you need to have access to a jump host there. So you need to request access to a jump host from the Nordix administrators.
But I mean, when deploy several first before you, if they'll get access on before you use, then you can't use the same namespace, so each unique namespace.
Yeah.
The addresses become unique.
Yeah.
Eight.
And if you want to have ingresses, as Pano showed here, so you can see the Jenkins, for example, from your laptop, then you need to request those ingresses to be set up for you as well.
Okay.
For your namespace or your node port.
The unique space address as well, per user or?
Not per user, I think. I mean, it's more generic address. I mean,
the host is now we have April, but April,
Yeah.
some kind of username or some other delimiter if you want to be multiple persons in the same cluster. So maybe this will mostly be used for us in the Eiffel community, this cluster or this setup, and we need to communicate and collaborate in a decent way so we don't ruin each other's deployments.
Where do you go to request access?
Yeah, that's a good. You need to know the man who gives you access. No. Yeah, exactly. So
need something else.
I mean, we can share the way to contact that person, but unfortunately, I don't think there is a ticket system or any open way to get that done. I mean, if we want that to happen, then maybe they could set up a Jira or something else to make it more like a working.
Contact. Easier with some.
Yeah, of course. And we will share the information, of course, in the community. So that's not the issue. But maybe I don't think the information is public on their open webpage, the Nordix.org webpage, because that's not the intention. That people should request access. Anyone on the internet should request access to this. Yes, as that.
Is it people are like
I think we can say anyone Eiffel interested. What this should be. I mean, I don't know. If we see that the load is too high, of course, we might need to do something about it, but I'm not really afraid about that right now. So I think it's better to keep it as open as possible and make those who are interested could start using it until we see problems with too many users.
But that would be if you have Docker, what is it? Build up in Docker.
On your local
You also
laptop, you
try
mean?
it
Or-
out,
Oh, yeah, on local laptop, of course, yeah.
But this one we can use it for CI/CD, for example, when we contribute to Easy2Use or another project, because right now we don't have CI/CD.
Yeah.
But I mean, we want to learn by our data.
Yeah, you can
Yeah.
use yourself, of course. Yeah. No, but it's more as if you want to share this access to others. I mean, if you want others to see what you are doing and collaborate in Jenkins here, for example, and those things to be published somewhere.
And the Docker deployment model, was it not as tested or?
I think it works, but I haven't used it so much because I use cluster every time.
But you're on a cluster on your laptop as well, so yeah.
Yeah, you can do it. Yeah.
Now the use case for just Docker isn't as big anymore.
Anyway, with Docker, then you need to use Docker for
Let's use that in the background. Okay. I'm not sure what steps with this is. Maybe we need to think about that a bit and share our ideas in the community. But now at least you've seen how this could work and both about Nordix and Easy2Use.
Related to Nordix, perhaps do detailed question. Images to the Docker registry, but we have a personal account for that. So that's not something, if you want to automate, obviously you want to have API keys or something.
Yes.
How could that be managed? And so who do we talk to about that?
Probably Robert in that case as well, I'm afraid.
Presumably,
The same person, yeah.
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 Functional users.
Functional users, I don't think it's called that way outside Ericsson. But anyway, yeah, some kind of user or at least API keys, as you say.
Yeah.
We might not need to have a password with a user with a password.
I think those API keys are tied to your personal use. For example, like
Yeah, in this case it's hardware, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's just you will have to first take care. So concept is even if some machine user there should be one unit attached to it.
Speaking about native event support of hardware and not that's happening in the CDF on the CD events. And so at least there seems to be some interest also there in those registries to propagate information about deployments or uploads to those registries through events. You might hear more about that in half an hour when Fatih should be here and talk about CDF.